All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Balanced Success Conversation. My name is Tameeka. So, if we haven't met before, I am the Goal Success Coach, and I help burnt out corporate women and other high achieving women focus on achieving their goals with less stress and more joy. And on top of being a Goal Success Coach, I am also very, very full time in a corporate career. So I created this panel series as a safe space for high achieving women who want to have honest, actionable conversations about creating success without continuing the cycle of burnout that we've all become accustomed to. Today's topic is the year-end reset, how to let go of stress before 2026. And today I am joined by Dr. Nicole Gutierrez and Stephanie Lewis, and both of them bring a wealth of experience, insight, and real life strategies to this conversation. So to get started, I want to have each of these wonderful ladies introduce themselves. So Stephanie, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tamika. Glad to be here and excited to be a part of this panel. My name is Stephanie Lewis, and I'm the founder of an organization called Live Well Flow, certified national board certified health and wellness coach, and mindfulness meditation and qigong instructor. And I help busy professionals and caregivers navigate stress, prevent burnout, and bring a sense of quiet steadiness to their life. And I do this principally through mindfulness practices, mindful movement like Qigong and breath work, and other self care practices. I am recently retired managing attorney, and that also informs my work in terms of the experience of a busy professional. And I serve as co president of the Mindfulness in Law Society. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Nicole?
Hi, and my name's Dr. Nicole, and I'm a board certified psychiatrist and weight loss expert. I help people use GOP1 along with emotional awareness skills to be able to not only lose weight, because GOP1 is a good job helping you lose weight, but then also be able to maintain those weight loss results on or off GOP1 using all the psychiatry skills that I've acquired, especially using emotional awareness skills, which is really the key to being able to like calm the internal so that you can be able to maintain those weight levels without having all the stress that kind of leads to the binge eating and the increased eating in the future.
Oh, I love that. And I know that's a huge goal for so many of us. So, for each of you, I'd like to understand what inspired your approach to stress and stress relief, and then starting to do like a reset at the end of the year.
I can
So,
go first. So the way that I address and help people treat their stress really has almost been my like trial and error. That's what I'm like. It's really through trial and error because starting off psychiatry, you kind of start learning all these basic principles. You learn about medications, you learn about different basic therapies. But then when you start actually applying that to patients, you start hitting walls. You're like, okay, why is this not working the way I hoped it would? And through just kind of hitting that wall, learning more skills, hitting a wall, learning more skills, it's really led me to helping people learn that emotions really is the quintessential feature. It is the core of the change that needs to be happening. It just needs to be addressed so that you can then begin to live that life you want, which no one wants to feel stressed. They feel stressed when they get stuck and can't figure out what the problems are that's leading to the stress. And so teaching them to understand their emotions that they're experiencing is really what's helped me allow people to begin to calm those distressing emotions so that they can live that peace, that joy, that happiness they truly desire, and not control stress many people want to do, be able to actually calm it. So that's really what's informed me and how I really got to this point. And then I've always loved exercise. So I actually started off in college being a personal trainer. I was a group exercise instructor even through medical school. And then when I went on my own weight loss journey, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to combine these two things. That's really what's inspired me to kind of combine these two pieces to really help people put that psychiatry part of it, which is really all about mindfulness. It's really all about emotional awareness with the weight loss strategies because they just pair so well together. You need both to be able to get that weight loss result that you truly desire.
I love that.
Absolutely. And my own journey of managing stress and burnout is really informed how I approach my work with clients as well. As an attorney, as an attorney practicing in a law firm, I hit a wall like like many do, and it I don't think it mattered the setting that I was in. I had just sort of accumulated over the years, so much of a lack of awareness of how I was treating myself and how I was not giving myself space. And so that's what led me to mindfulness, which is my primary approach for coaching and for practice. And it has been a game changer for me. Mindfulness, awareness, that non-judgmental being, giving your treating yourself with a sense of kindness as you become more aware of how you are navigating the world and the changes that you can make so that it is a much more peaceful journey. And we are living in a really noisy world right now. And so we have the internal noise that we need to learn how to navigate and manage, as well as this extra external noise. And so I've been thinking a lot about stillness and quiet and how that can help us to manage the end of this year and going into 2026.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see for both of your career paths, the amount of stress that each of you would have been dealing with. I think most of us don't think about it like when we're younger and we're trying to determine a career path. We're not thinking about what that potential career path is going to mean for us personally. We're just looking at, we're raised to say, okay, you go to school, you get a good job, and then, you work until you retire, but it's not really focusing as much on the personal aspects because a lot of that is how I ended up in a very similar position. It was just, constantly going and going and going. And then one day I was just like, this isn't working. Like, what's happening to me? I can't keep going like this.
Yeah, and we're not trained. I mean, actually, we're trained the opposite. I think
Mhm.
now there's more discussion of things like mindfulness and emotion regulation and self-care. But when we were coming up in law school and medical school, and um, I think we were trained the opposite, right?
Mhm.
That's You're not really supposed to be concerned. If you talk about it, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we are in a better place now in the sense that people do feel more comfortable and do have expectations that their emotional health and their self-care is important.
When you said that, all I could think about was like my college professor, deferred gratification, deferred gratification. And it's almost like you just keep putting that before. And I felt like I never knew when to end that. In college, it was like deferred gratification, just get into medical school. Medical school was like, just get through this, just get through residency. And then when I started my first job, I was still in that deferred gratification because now you have student loan debt to pay for. Now we're trying to get established with just kind of monetary,
Right.
just kind of lifestyle. And it's just like, at what point in time do you allow yourself to bring awareness to like this almost rat race that you're constantly on? And kind of taking a step back and being like, wait a minute, when does deferred gratification truly end? Because it honestly could in even in retirement, you can still be reaching for things. But it's like I really had to take a step back and be like, when is it good enough? When is what I have okay to just have and not constantly keep needing more, wanting more, having this other milestone that I'm always trying to reach for? So that was a huge like buildup of stress for me because it's like, well, if I can do this month, well, then if I can do this year, and it's like the year never ends. It's 2025 and we're still kind of reaching for stuff. So allowing that shift in the way I think, allowing the shift in when I like challenge my patients that I'm working, I was like, wait a minute. So what is good enough? What is the goal here? And helping people really attach that because it's easy to get sidetracked with all these other things that need to be done, that have to be done, and just
Mhm.
kind of get caught in that loop.
Yeah, and whose dream are you living,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Are these goals your goals? When you reach retirement age and you look back, are you going to have lived the life that you wanted to live? Are you going to have made the choices that you wanted to make?
Mhm. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge part, like the relationships. It's kind of like growing up, past professional school. I still feel like I was growing up. It's like sacrificing so much. It is like sacrificing relationship with my children to kind of make sure that we're financially stable, to make sure we have all our debt paid, to make sure we have all these goals done. And it's almost like, what are you sacrificing? And especially those relationships, that's the biggest sacrifice. Cause like you can never get those years back with your kiddos. Your kids are grown. Like my son's in high school. He's gonna be a senior next year. And he's out the door. Like he's driving. He's like, I see him in the morning and night when he gets home. It's like those children. It is like, what is the relationship you have with them? What is the lessons you're teaching them? What is the relationship you're building with them as you're achieving and striving? That's one thing I've really had to take a step back. It's like, wait a minute. what is the purpose of all this? Like,
Mhm.
yes, we're stable, but like at what cost to my children? What were the lessons they got to bear in this? And so I think that's a really important part of like the stress of like, what is your ultimate goal? What is the relationship you want to have at the end of this? Not just what is the thing that you want, but what is that feeling that you want? The relationship you have with your kid is, I think, is the most important.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a piece. So I don't have kids, but I've heard a lot of people say that, but it's always, like you said, it's always after the fact. It's always hindsight. It's always looking back like, "Oh, I wish I would have done this differently." But it's also saying it from the perspective of you did achieve some of the goals that you had. So it's trying to understand, I think earlier, what your goals are, not what other people's goals are for you, and what you want to achieve in your personal life, what those priorities are, what your values are, and how you can still achieve those while also achieving your professional goals.
Mhm.
There has to be a balance. And I think we're always taught to focus more on the professional goals because that's where the money's going to come from. And yes, we all need money. We need to survive. We all want to live comfortable. But at the end of the day, you also have to be happy with yourself. And you have to be able to continue actually doing that work because you need to pay your bills.
It is
So,
definitely a balancing act. It is definitely a
yeah.
balancing act. And it's also interesting how I can see, like, I have my kids are 10 years apart. It's also interesting to see how I raised my son versus how I raised my daughter. My son, I've put a lot of that pressure that I had on myself onto him. And it led to a lot of rebellion from him growing up. Because I'm like, wait a minute, you need to be great at everything. You need to be doing this. You're doing this activity. You need to like practice right. You know, it's like, wait a minute. What is the goal here? And so even my own transformation has really changed my relationship with him and how I parent him, and even so much different for how I parent my child, like my younger child, my 10-year-old, my she's 10 years different, but my 6-year-old. Because as I've reflected and kind of say, what is the actual purpose here? What is the actual goal? What is like, and so it's allowing myself to even change it and reflect how it changes their relationship and how it changes their own perspective on themselves too, which is really important.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a lot of this is tied up in identity, right? Identity and ego. I mean, as I mentioned, I recently retired as an attorney. Much of my adult life was caught up in the identity of attorney, right? I retired earlier than I expected to take care of parents, or really my mom at this point. So now my identity is caregiver. I would never have guessed that, 3 years ago, that that was going to be my identity. And really, I should say my identity isn't caregiver. My identity is something separate from that too, right? Because that's going to change. But a lot of these decisions we make, I think, are also tied up in, I don't know if I'm saying this right, who we want to project ourselves to be to the world. And we're making those decisions young. So, I mean, there's a cascade effect, right? Because student loans can drive decisions about the path that you
Mhm.
take. And, I was very proud. I had a young cousin. She made a choice for college. Between going to a prominent school and a less prominent school because she didn't want to take on the student loans. And, I thought that was a very perceptive and brave choice in a way, because a lot of people would not have understood that choice. So, that's something, as, young people may want to keep in mind as they start making decisions that may, impact decisions that they make down the road.
I
Yeah.
think that really gets into having someone who you really trust to guide you, someone who's kind of walked the path before you. And how you communicate with your children, I think really, like you were saying, really impacts the ability for them to be able to make decisions with their long-term future and goal. But if they don't have like that vulnerable relationship with their parents, where their parents are very validating of them, they're always like, you're gonna do this, it leads to them sometimes getting to this like perfectionistic mode. It leads to them getting to these, well, I want to go here because it looks better on my resume. It's a high achieving school. I want to be able to, so they're always like chasing this goal that's almost, it's not unattainable, but it's chasing this goal to kind of decrease kind of the distress they have within themselves. So I think what you're talking about is like someone being able to feel calm and be like, no, this is what's better for me in the long run. So
Right.
yes, making this decision, I think that's such an important like skill for everyone, especially our young children.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a conversation that our parents weren't having. Like, that's not what they were taught, you know? So it's like, as like each generation, I'm starting to notice more and more mindfulness, more and more looking at, okay, what do I actually want to do? Like, what is the path that's actually going to make you happy? Focus more on what you're wanting to do and not just what's going to look good to everybody else. I've started seeing that more. I mean, the kids that I'm seeing that have parents that are thinking like that, they're the next generations that are going to be out in the workforce. So maybe not this current generation that's in high school, maybe some of them, but the
Mhm.
next one.
It is definitely a balancing act. It is definitely a balancing act, which I struggle with this all the time because there's also going away because I find myself not even going over too far. It's like, okay, so let's validate, let's make sure we're making you happy. But it's almost like jobs are here for us to work and it's here for us to be productive citizens. It's not always here, and so there's this balancing act that we're even trying to find with our children. It's like, I want you to have something that you enjoy. But sometimes work isn't fun. Sometimes we do things because that's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to find that balancing act, which I don't have it perfect. Sometimes I'm way too far to the left, sometimes way too far to the right. But it's an interesting balance. I feel like kids of the 80s, I was born in the 80s, kids of the 80s, we were very much, our parents were like, this is what needs to be done. This is what's important. Do this. And now we sometimes swing too far. We're like, well, let's do what you make happy. Let's everyone get a try. Wait a minute. And so I don't know where the balance is. I don't think we all know yet, but it's definitely allowing ourselves to kind of know that we don't have this all figured out. We're trying to really
Yeah.
do the best we can to raise well-rounded, productive citizens as best we can.
Right. They don't call it work for nothing.
Yeah. 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 You have to figure out there's
That's
definitely
right.
some pieces that you are not going to enjoy. It's like
Right. There's a
you
thing
have to
called
understand that.
adulting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's gonna be some that you love, and it's like, okay, what job can I actually deal with the parts that I know I'm not going to like, and which jobs where I'm like, okay, that's a step too far for me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's
But
finding that
yeah,
balance.
yeah, I think for everybody though, that balance it looks different for everybody, but also every day for everybody.
Yeah,
Balance looks
that's right.
different.
Every season of your life is gonna be different.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it's like I have times where I can literally just keep going and work all day long, and I feel fine. I feel great. But then I have days where I'm like, no. I'm going to do the bare minimum today because that's what I have the energy for.
Mhm.
And this
Definitely.
is just going to have to be good enough.
Mhm. And I think it's allowing ourselves to recognize that difference. That's so important. 'Cause sometimes when productivity day A looks different than productivity day B, sometimes it's so easy to like beat yourself up about that. But it's like, no,
Hmm.
realizing that you do the best you can, you show up and do what needs to be done, and you kind of allow yourself to be okay with that. I think that's another hard part to kind of find that balance within ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes that stress and lack of energy comes from the internal drivers like perfectionism, or rather, I should say toxic perfectionism. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with striving for being, doing the absolute best you can. But at some point, it tips a scale. Again, balance there as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's what, for me, I started looking into like cycle based planning. For me, that is a huge piece in understanding the different phases of your cycle and how your energy changes and your focus changes. That's what gave me the opportunity to give myself grace on those days where I'm like, I'm tired. And then it's like now, because I've been doing it for so many years, I'm like, this is just not the time for me to attempt to pull like, a 12-hour workday doing like super focused work. It's like right now I need to do like my absolute minimum admin work. Let me just clean up the back end, set my plans, set my schedules. And then when it's time, when I have that energy, I'm ready to
Mhm.
go. But it's also understanding that I have a job where I have the ability to kind of dictate what my workday is going to be like and what my workload for that day will look like. Not all the time, but it is something that I do recognize as okay, this is not something everybody does or not
Mhm.
something that everybody has the ability to do. So sometimes if you need more sleep, then you have to find ways in your personal life to make that part easier
Mhm.
so that on the back end you can give yourself what you need so that you can still make it through your day.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you make an important well, you make several important points there about really listening to your body and um and what it needs and what it can give. But also not everybody has the ability to, back off
Yeah.
of what it is they're going to do that day. So then the question is, how do you feed yourself? How do you nourish yourself on those days where you do need to keep
Yeah.
going? How do you, take that pause and, give yourself a breath and, give yourself sort of moments of, checking in internally throughout the day so that you can keep going in a way that doesn't completely burn you out
Yeah.
and affect the quality of the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's to me, that's where like sleep is a big piece,
It
but
is.
you can also do certain things like meal prep ahead of time
Mhm.
because I've done that leading into weeks that I knew were going to be busier. So when I do that, those nights where I didn't have to cook dinner because I had everything ready saved me so much time. You don't realize how much time you spend every evening cooking dinner until you do that. It's like take a few hours on a Sunday, prep everything, and then during the week, you can take a break, go throw something in the microwave, or if you just need to throw something together because you've already cooked it and you just need to pull the meal together, now it's like you just feel like you can actually get something done and it's taking that extra stress. So I think it's each person looking at the things in their life that take time that they could either try to do something ahead of time or just maybe have somebody else do it for them that week
Mhm.
Mhm.
or that day. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you need somebody else to maybe iron. I don't know if anybody still irons,
I do every once in a while.
but I mean, like, there have been weeks where I've lined up my closet so I have all my clothes ready for the week. Like, if I know, okay, on this day I have a certain meeting and I want to look extra professional, I have those clothes already lined up. That saves a lot of time in the mornings.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not having to stop and think about, okay, what am I wearing today? It's like, nope, it's already here. Let me just grab it. My lunch is already prepared. Let me just grab that out the fridge on my way out the door. Dinner's already prepared. Now I'm not stuck trying to figure out what I'm going to make for dinner and
Mhm.
having to make it and then having to clean it up.
Yeah. And setting boundaries also is
Yeah.
another way of saving time.
Mhm.
Determine where you're going to put your energy and your time.
Mm,
Make all the difference in the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
So many times when it comes to stress, I feel like where people start to struggle is that they have good intentions. And then as more gets kind of put onto their plate, they start moving more into chaos. And then they're just kind of like everything is just chaotic or they're just kind of doing one thing without the other. And so sometimes it's so important to help people kind of say, hey, let's help you take a step back and start reevaluating. So let's help you start writing things out and resetting your goals because so many times people move into that chaotic state and nothing is getting accomplished. They're not getting the goals they want. They're not sleeping enough. They're not prepping enough. They're not monitoring their energy levels enough. And they're just like functioning on this like survival mode. And so many times it's about like you just talked about de-stressing by starting to just bring awareness to what you're experiencing so that you can then start to bring organization to your life and live that life that you want. So you can kind of monitor your patterns of behavior, monitor like seasonal patterns, your menstrual
Mhm.
patterns, all these different patterns of life that affect your ability to function from time to time.
Right. Right. And the one thing I noticed time and time again that really sabotages our ability to reach our goals is taking on too many things. And I think you were alluded to that, Dr. Nicole. I mean, when we're trying to reach a goal, trying to reach 4 or 5 goals at one time, right? As opposed to starting with 1 or 2 and taking baby steps and just building so it's not a shock to your nervous system and to your mind and body that you're trying to completely change your whole life.
Mhm.
It's too much to ask. We ask too much of ourselves time and time again. And so that is I think of one of the most important things that someone can do when they're trying to make a shift is again that awareness of what is most important, what is intrinsically motivating to them, and then breaking it down into something that's actually manageable and sustainable and that they can stick to.
I really think that, especially this time of year, that can really be a huge thing. As we're moving into the holiday season, you're trying to prep your home for visitors to be coming. You're trying to get food prepared. You're trying to be able to balance the income that's kind of coming in regarding all these increased expenses that are getting ready to come out. You're trying to make sure your kiddos are having a good experience. And so it's really hard, especially this time of year, to really start to balance all those pieces and kind of keep yourself like level as you're kind of moving to this holiday season. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there comes a point where we have to understand that it's okay for us to allow ourselves to let certain things go. Because I think a lot of times they'll have a goal and they get really excited for this goal. But as they start working towards it, they realize this isn't working out the way I want. But because they already set the goal, they're like, but I have to achieve it. It has to look like this. You're allowed to let that go. You're allowed to let go of what you originally thought. And if you need to drop that goal or just completely scratch it, That's also okay. And one thing that I love to tell people, and coming from a goal coach, they always seem surprised, but I'm like, if you're too busy, stop working on it for a little while. Do the other things that you need to do so that you can function, so that you're not constantly stressing yourself out, trying to do all of that. Like you said, trying to host family, trying to plan for holidays, trying to do all the things, and then still finding time to focus on a goal. To me, at that point, it's more important to use that time for mindfulness, use that time for self care because you're already stressed. Build in time for self-care, and when you're ready, then you can come back to the goal. The goal will always be there. But take the time for yourself. Give yourself that quiet time, that space to understand what you're feeling and what's going to help you get to where you need to be. And then that's when you take action. Or not. Sometimes you just need to sit and stare at the wall for a little while because I've done that. I've
Mhm.
had those days.
That's one thing I love about combining like psychiatry, GLP-1, and like weight loss. Weight loss is a huge barometer for how your stress level is doing. When you find yourself like all of a sudden you're gaining 3 to 5 pounds, it's a good time to be like, what is going on here? I can tell you, like, even like random arguments with my husband, or even arguments that just I feel bad about stuff. One time I put on like 7 pounds. He was busy. He was getting ready to take he and my son were going to go on a band trip to New York, and me and my daughter were going to be home. And I'd asked him on a Monday, hey, can you take pictures of me? And he was like, sure. And then Thursday comes around, like, hey, can you take pictures of me? We talked about this. And he was like, I have 10 things to do today. But my loving husband dropped everything he was doing and went and did what I asked. But that guilt just started eating me up. And I'm just like, I took out this weekend. I took my daughter to my mother's house that Friday. And just the stress of me feeling guilty for asking him to do something that he dropped everything to come help me with, including having a huge busy weekend I had planned, like I just ate through it. Why? Because I had given myself so much guilt and had so much built up and the stress of everything. It was just like, that's a huge barometer for allowing us to say, where is the balance for yourself? Can you even start to recognize when these functional patterns, like you said, those self-sabotage kind of start to kick in for yourself so that you can then kind of move and be like, uh-oh, I'm doing it again, and then move inward and start reflecting so that you can kind of calm and kind of break some of those patterns of behavior that you don't even realize you're doing sometimes.
Right, and bringing kindness to that process, not
Mhm.
judging yourself, just saying, "Okay, we got a little off track here. I'm human. I can do that, and I can bring myself back on track without beating myself up, without the
Mhm.
self-criticism, without the judgment, and just get started again. It's another day. And every breath is another opportunity to start again.
Mhm.
We don't have to beat ourselves up about it."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that belief in that it's actually possible to change, that it's actually possible for tomorrow to be better than today. Because so many times I talk to people and they're like, but. It's like, wait a minute. No, no. Let's first of all attach to the goal. Do you think this is possible? Do you think that you can change? Do you think tomorrow can be better than today? Because I see a lot of self doubt. People start doing that. It's like, wait a minute. We know we want this, but you have to believe it's possible for you. I believe it's possible for you, but do you believe it's possible for you? Such an important part of that kind of self care, kind of judgment free kind of goal that we all have for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits, I think, Dr. Nicole, of starting small. You may have a end vision in mind, but what you're looking at is the first step
Hmm.
or the second step. So you're not, you know, you can do that. You know, picking the first step, you know, you can do that. It's a little bit of a stretch, but not a monumental
Hmm.
stretch. And then you just add to that, right?
Those little bite-sized pieces, like, start
That's
small
right.
and just let it kinda like a snowball, just slowly get bigger. As you
Exactly.
get bigger and stronger, you're able to, like, hold more and do more, so certainly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to another question. So, for women that are trying to learn this and understand, how can they tell the difference between like a healthy reflection, looking at what it is that they're doing and say, okay, this is the pattern that I'm seeing. I need to, make this change, or I need to think back to what, my doctor, my friend, or whoever said, versus when it's just purely self criticism. That's not something that's going to be constructive.
Um, so the way I see the distinction is if we're talking about a healthy reflection, we're really talking about we're looking at a particular circumstance and we're reflecting on, okay, what went well, what didn't go well. And it is not sort of this constant self-attack that goes off in multiple directions with your energy and your mind. And so it's really a shifting. a reframing if it's a healthy reflection. And it kind of reminds me of I remember I did a presentation once on my job, and there was something I didn't say quite right. And so this is something my boss taught me, and he said, that happens to everyone. And how about you focus on what you did well instead of what you think you did wrong, right? I mean, give yourself a break here, right? You're just a human being. And so that's an example, I think, of healthy reflection. Whereas what I was engaged in is, my mind was going back and forth. And what a lot of people don't understand is that your thoughts are not necessarily facts, right? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going through your head. And so don't believe it all. Have some discernment. Learn how to have some discernment of what it is that you're going to attach your energy and your own belief to, and all that stuff streaming through.
Hmm. I think one of the things I also try to help people discern between like what's a fact versus kind of what is kind of the negative thoughts they're having is one, I think having reflecting to someone's really important because sometimes you're speaking, but not even aware of what you're truly saying. And so one thing I always try to help is like, let's start off with the facts of what's happening. If you're an attorney, the attorneys are going to be like, well, they upset because no, 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 no. What are the facts of what just happened? Because we deal with facts. Where people also find themselves kind of getting a little off kilter and especially judging themselves negatively is when they put like this, they put this big paintbrush everything. This person was mean to me. This person was bad. This person wronged me. So wait a minute. Let's talk about the specific action that was done. What did this person specifically say? Because this is where we start. So many times people kind of put this judgment on everything. I was like, this is a judgment. This is the emotion judgment speaking up. We only deal with facts. So you have to challenge yourself not to allow yourself to paint things with these big overarching things. They did this to me. They were mean to me. They bullied me. Wait a minute. What was the action they specifically did? Because when we have the action, then we can start identifying what was your feeling towards that action? Because that's where change happens. We can't change their actions. We can't change these negative beliefs you have, but we can identify facts and identify your feelings so that we could then calm those distressing emotions you were feeling so that you can then make a decision that's aligned with your beliefs and what you want to happen.
I like that. Feel like I talked about that at one point years ago. Like that was a practice that I said I was going to start. I may have started it, but I definitely forgot it. It's one that I can definitely see where I can bring that one back in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
easy to fall back into that old pattern. It's so
Yeah.
easy because that's natural because the old pattern is very colluding. People support you. People are like, oh, yeah, they are bad. I can't believe they said that to you. But no one's really talking about what truly happened. And they're colluding with you, but not truly supporting you, which is, and it gets really confusing. It gets really confusing because to do the other thing can also kind of be confrontational a little bit. People be like, oh, you're not supporting me. Oh, you're not believing me. But they did say that. It's like, yeah, they did something mean. But what was your response to that? How did you feel about that?
Mhm.
It can be challenging to have those conversations in a way that's like calming and soothing to the other person without kind of getting their guard up and making them feel defensive and making them feel like you don't believe me, you don't support me. So it's a very kind of it's a hard line to teeter sometimes or walk along.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this discussion. There were two practices that I did during the course of my own mindfulness journey that made a tremendous difference for me. One is I came to the practice with I want to say closed heart, so to speak, right? One that could be more open. And I spent a full year just engaged in loving kindness practices. It was really transformational, just sort of extending well wishes to oneself and helping to, um, create different default pathways, right? I mean, we can change, our brain can change, called neuroplasticity. And Dr. Nicole could talk to you a lot more about that than we have time for, I'm sure. And so that made a difference in terms of how to switch from that unhealthy criticism to a more constructive criticism. And I also spent, I don't know how many months just paying attention to my assumptions throughout the day. And it was incredibly eye-opening in terms of mindful awareness. And sometimes I'd have to go to a colleague and say, "This happened," you know, and they're like, "Yeah, I think that's happening to everyone," you know? And, you just sort of start to get a sense and build some compassion for yourself, the whole common humanity thing and that Kristen Neff, a self-compassion leader, thought leader talks about. So there are a range of practices that we can engage in. We can turn our job into, which is what I did. Like my job was my mindfulness practice and really increase enormous awareness by just paying attention to little small things throughout the day.
Mhm.
I
And I think
love
that's the
that.
key is allowing yourself to bring awareness to what you're truly experiencing. I think that is the key to everything because you can't make change. I tell people, you can't make change. You have no idea what you're truly experiencing.
Right.
We have like this, as we say in CPT, we have these rose colored glasses on, but we have to help you be able to lift those glasses off so that you can see the world differently. And when you perceive things differently, that's when you start to interact with yourself differently. And that's when you start to interact with other people
Others.
differently. But it's not until that perception changes that these experiences that you desire to have also start to change for you.
Yeah. And I love that practice. A year of just kindness and as much as I want to say that I want to incorporate that, I know myself well enough that I can maybe commit to 30 days.
That's okay.
And, but I'm
That's
like, I
okay.
still feel like if I do, like, even if I can just do the first 30 days, that gives me something. And it's like, you know what? I can do another 30 days. But I
Yeah.
love that idea because you're right. It's like once your brain gets used to doing that, that can become your default. It'll
Yeah.
take time, but it
From
can
it
become a
takes time, it
default.
takes consistency. Right, and in the West, we have a problem with being kind to ourselves and wishing ourselves well, and so for a lot of people, it's a really hard practice to engage in, and so, it's important to understand that what we're talking about are our general wishes of well-being to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're not saying, "This is our experience right now." We're saying, "May I be filled with loving kindness," right? "May I be content and at ease." That doesn't mean right now you're content. "May I be content and at ease in this world." And we can extend those wishes to others as well. And, you can pick your own phrases. You can, spend time creating your own loving kindness meditation or loving kindness practice and seeing what works for you, what fits for you, so that you're not stretching too far as well. Again, if we try to stretch too far from where we are, then we may not continue doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one area. So before we went live, we were talking about the use of AI and Chat GPT. And I have seen, and I think I tried it a couple times. For me personally, it felt weird.
Uh-huh.
But there was a coach that I follow, and she was saying she was having a really rough time. And she went to Chat GPT and she's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's happening. What could potentially be the causes? And working through that, she ended up, I think, almost creating like a journal for herself, like journal prompts, and she was able to work through what she was feeling. And I feel like that's something that somebody could do if they have no idea, what kind of like affirmations or phrases to say to themselves. You can use AI, get some ideas, and then from there you can build something that would work for you. You can even, I'm sure, ask ChatGPT to give you like a meditation script that you could then record yourself saying and then listen to that, because I've done that before. And then I started recording like my own affirmations that I'm able to listen to. I will say this, it's very weird to listen to yourself recorded, but you get used to it after a while.
I record meditations.
Okay. So I've recorded them, but it's different for me to record them for other people versus me recording it for me to listen to on a
Yeah,
regular basis.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing to keep in mind though is yes, AI can be a great tool, but mindfulness, meditation, they're not substitutes. They're not therapy. They're not substitutes so it depends on the circumstance what's right. I mean, your general, you know, experiences that most of us have, that's one thing, but discerning when you need more than that, when you need professional support is an important part of the process as well, so that we're not misusing
Yeah.
these practices and also trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
This actually reminds me of a patient I had the other day where their chief complaint because they didn't have enough information, they couldn't put the pieces together or verbalize what the true problem was. But person who's been listening to these same complaints and problems for like, what have been a psychiatrist for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, when I
Right.
graduated, I don't even know anymore. It's been too long. But anyway, I knew the thing she was coming in was a symptom, not a problem. And so if she had just typed that into ChatGPT, she would have been off on this tangent on something else that was actually
Oh,
not
yeah.
truly addressing the reason that was causing her lack
Yeah.
of motivation. Because lack of motivation was a symptom. That wasn't actually the problem. That's what she focused on, but that wasn't actually the problem. And so as I just kind of talked to her a little bit more, by the end of the session, she was like, and so I definitely do think ChatGPT is a good tool when you have enough information to feed it so it can guide
Yeah.
you. But if you're not feeding it the correct information, it can only take what it's given. It can't, as Stephanie said, it can't discern, it can't look deeper, it can't say, this is what you're saying, but your affect is not congruent with what you're actually saying. But when you mention this is the problem. You don't see it as the problem, but now it's my job to help you understand why that is truly the problem and then help give you the steps for how to fix that problem. Because then when they have a direction, then they can kind of fill in the details with like ChatGPT, be like, oh, okay, well, how do I,
Yeah.
fill in, some of these missing pieces that I'm not quite getting now that you have a clear direction. I hear this all the time with like medical problems. They're like, oh, when I Googled this, they said I had cancer. I was like, no, you don't. That's what that is. I was like, yes, yes. Yes, they're going to give, yes, but it's for medical professions to have enough pattern recognition to understand the subtleties of these symptoms. And you understand how you're saying things like, no, that's not what that means. That's not, And so that's in between like a discernment of a professional that's been doing this for a long, that's studied it rather than just typing in facts and facts and not facts, but typing in a fact and then trying to get another fact because so much of this is subtlety. Some of this is like, it's the feeling that you're getting as someone's talking. It's not just like, I heard you say this, but that's not really what you mean. I know that. So much of that is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say for me, because I've been doing this for so long, I'm able to look at it and be like, okay, because I did try it once and I was like, that's not it. And I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. This is where my past experiences have informed, how I'm feeling now. And so I think if you've been on more of a self-awareness journey, you may be able to use that tool a little bit more. But I definitely wouldn't say to try and use any sort of AI as a therapist. I'd also say don't just stop Googling symptoms. I've taken myself way too far doing this. Don't Google symptoms. Or if you do, just get an idea and be like, you know what? I'm just going to call my doctor because that's what I've always ended up doing. Like, I'm looking at this like, is it really that bad? You know what? Let me just make a doctor's appointment and get this over with. Like, it's faster. It's faster if you just, you know what? If you know you're going to end up there, just go straight there. Don't take the roundabout path. So, okay. So what's from each of you? What's one, if you could just pick one, or if you have maybe two, but a simple practice to help women release stress or any expectations that they have of certain maybe interactions or just like results before we step into the new year?
I'll go first, I guess. So, one of the things that I think is so important, I really think it's twofold. I think one, allowing yourself to do like coping skills. Coping skills means something that's going to hit this vagus nerve to kind of calm the body. So, I think when you can allow yourself to view things in a calm fashion, it allows you to be able to view things differently. So, one, how are you allowing yourself to start the process? So, starting with some kind of coping skill, whatever your favorite type is, and whatever works best for you, whatever the situation may be. The second thing I think is really important for being able to calm stress is then I love doing like those ABCs. This is like the precept I always recommend to everyone, doing those little ABCs. What is the awareness? What is going on? What is the situation? How deep can you take that awareness point? What is the thought you're having? What is the behavior response? Because the more you're able to observe yourself, the more you're able to bring awareness to what you're truly experiencing and how you're interacting with the world, that is the point where you can start to make a change. But if you have no idea what you're experiencing, it's hard to begin to make a change. So many people come to me talking about the symptoms they're experiencing. Like these are symptoms. These are not actually the problem. But once we can have you take a step back and see this as a whole, see that everything that's actually happening to bring awareness to that, that's when you can start making different changes. That's when you can start living life differently. So that's what I always recommend to people. What is your coping skill that you'd like to implement? And then what is your awareness practice so that you can begin to know what's going on so that you can then relate it to what's triggering the emotion stress so that you can then make a change to that. Because you can't change something you have no idea what you're experiencing.
And I would add to that to find the practices that most resonate with you, the ones that you can do. The best practice is the practice that you can do. but also make sure you include in that practices that are at the ready no matter where you are or what you're doing. So, really simple things. We like to make things really complex. It's the simple stuff that makes the most difference. Things like the extended exhale, right? You can do that anywhere. You're breathing in, let's say, for a count of 3 and breathing out for a count of 6, or in for a count of 4 and breathing out. So, you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest response in the body. You can do that while you're sitting in a meeting. You can do that before a phone call. You can do that while you're standing in the grocery store line. You can do that while you're sitting in traffic, anywhere. Your breath is with you wherever you go. And there's a range of other breathing practices as well. And even before that, make sure you're breathing, right? We often we don't realize how often we're holding our breath. And I was really shocked, when I first started taking training in breath work, that I was holding my breath far more than I realized. And when we're stressed, you may be doing that more than you think. And so checking in, just starting that awareness by checking in. So whether or not you actually are breathing, how much you're holding your breath, and then integrating simple practices like the extended exhale, or I could, you know, talk about a range of them that you take with you wherever you are.
Mm, I love that. And I have noticed recently the same thing with me holding my breath. That's like the past couple weeks, something I've started noticing. So it's interesting that you say that because I don't understand why we do it. But I've noticed that it's like, okay, I need to take just a little bit of a deeper breath right now.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much tension in your body you can release by paying attention to your breath. If it's appropriate for you, belly breathing and so on and so forth can make a tremendous difference in how you feel.
Yeah. And Dr. Nicole, you mentioned the vagus nerve. So this is something that I've been seeing all over the place, something I've been like really interested in trying to learn a little bit more about. Can you explain like what that does and just different ways that you can actually use like techniques to try and help yourself calm down using that?
So the vagus nerve is where your sympathetic nervous system is firing from. And so that is like we call it the typical fight or flight response. And so when you're in fight or flight response, you can even extreme this as survival response. It's hard for your body to rationally think. It's hard for you to use your frontal lobe right here because your brain is just in response mode. It is in pattern recognition mode. And so in order to be able to change that, you first have to be able to calm down that sympathetic nervous system that's firing. And so there's a variety of different coping skills that you can do that target this vagus nerve. When I ask people, what is your most common coping skill? The most common thing I get is actually avoidance tactics. They're suppressing, they're avoiding, they're distracting themselves, whatever that technique may be, whether it's like, oh, I try to think about something else. I try to go do something else. I try to watch TV. I try to spam on my phone. I mean, they'll give a variety of like distraction techniques, which aren't actually coping skills. Coping skills, like I said, are things that are going to decrease the firing of the sympathetic nervous system. Something physical, whether it's a breathing technique, whether it's an exercise technique, whether it's a tapping technique, whether it's a PMR, I always call it PMR, but that's the medicine, PMR technique, something that's going to fire the body and get movement flowing so that your vagus nerve stops firing, so that you're moving more into moving from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, so that you can then bring awareness to what you're truly experiencing.
I love that. And I love that you explain the difference between avoidance or distraction versus a coping mechanism because I have always just kind of lumped them together.
Mm-mm.
But it's that makes a lot of sense. And I think looking at it from that angle, you can better understand what it can take for you to finally get to a point where it's like, okay, I can think straight again.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So, okay. I've already known, put the phone down. But then again, there are times where I use my phone to help me because I'll do like a 2-minute breathing exercise. Sometimes like I'll find a video on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
or I'll listen to a meditation or I'll do like at work, I listen to a lot of like binaural beats. And sometimes that's what helps me get through the
Mm-hmm.
day. So it's just understanding those differences. So I'll have to keep that in mind too for me.
Certainly.
Okay. And then, so what's a small reflection exercise that you would recommend to help women as they're, thinking through their stress for the upcoming holidays and what they want to carry into the new year?
And so when I think of reflection, one, this can be of varying levels of reflection. And so it really starts off, well, one, I think it starts with knowing where your level of ability to reflect internally is. Most people's is actually quite low. And so usually we're starting off pretty high. Like, first of all, can you just bullet point out? Like, I love the, what is the business phrase? It's the SMART goals. What is your SMART goal? Can you actually put down in an actionable, a timeline? What is your SMART goal? Can you even start there? And especially when it comes to the holidays, what is the goals you have for yourself? Can you start just aligning what those goals are and just write them out, bullet point them out? And then the next step is, how do you want to feel? What is the feeling that you desire to have? And are these goals that you have set for yourself aligning with that desired feeling you have? And so that's one way you can start to really kind of take a step back and look about that. Say, these are principles way you can reduce stress. Because if all of a sudden you have all these goals set up, you're like, doing 8 things like this in 3 days is not going to make me feel very happy. Well, maybe you just start cutting some of these off so that you can actually have time to rest in this period. You're not just running around with your chicken with your head cut off. And so really writing it down is so important, because sometimes we just have this running list in our head and we have these ideas and we're just going through it. But putting it on paper allows you to make that alignment possible so that you can reduce your stress and have that more closely desired feeling that you desire to have over the holidays.
And a big part of the stress during the holiday season, of course, are the people around us, the relationships, right? So another thing one can do is know what's draining your energy and knowing who are your energy vampires, so to speak, and coming up in advance with strategies for how to manage that, how to manage your time around that person, how to manage how you respond as opposed to react, and knowing what to let go, just letting it be and not taking it on can also make a big difference in terms of setting those emotional boundaries.
Just thinking, I'm like, there's so much. And it's funny because I always, corporate SMART goals are everywhere.
Yeah.
Corporate does not care how you feel. So it's taking that extra step of personal accountability,
Yeah.
so and I know a lot of people probably don't set SMART goals for their personal goals. I think for most people, unless they've been doing goals for like a certain amount of time, they're just saying, this is my New Year's resolution because that's the time of year that we're in. But then by February, everything's gone back to, what the routines were. And so I think it's like you said, understanding what the goal is, being very specific. I do definitely agree with writing it down, but it's also knowing what's not going to work for you, what to take out, and also knowing how you're expecting it to make you feel so that you know if you're on that right path. Because you may think that, okay, well, if I achieve this goal, then I'm going to be happy. But then as you start working towards it, it's like, oh, this isn't making me happy. It's like, it's time for you to really analyze that, I think, and be honest with yourself and know that it's okay to let that go. If it's not, now, granted, you're not going to be happy the entire journey. I'm not saying that at all. There are going to be times where you're like, why did I decide I wanted to do this? But in the long run, as you're working through it, if you're looking at it, if it's truly not taking you where you thought it was going to go, if if you're looking at what that end result is going to be based on where you're at, and it's not what you thought it was going to be, make the change now. Don't wait until you've spent like 5, 6 months being absolutely miserable and then being like, oh, well, I told myself I was going to do this. I just have to keep going until it's finished. Then I can do something else. Like, you're worth more than that. Like you, your happiness, just your life. You're worth more than you being miserable every single day just to achieve something that you're no longer aligned with anymore.
Yeah, and that goes back to your comment earlier about allowing yourself to just let some things go.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to allow ourselves that grace. We give it to other people,
Right.
but we need to give that to ourselves as well. So going right back to your kindness and love. So I think that's a huge piece. That's a huge thing to remember that each of us needs the capacity to do that, but we have to start slow. If it's not a practice that you're used to, you have to start slow because your brain will rebel. I've tried making massive changes all at once. After about a week, my brain is like, you know what, you have a headache today, you're not doing it.
Mhm.
So just take it slow, take it one step at a time, but focus on the things that you're truly wanting to do. So as we're coming close to the top of the hour, I'd like to ask each of you. So if there's one message that you want any of our viewers to walk away with, what's the one thing that you want them to hold on to?
I think for me is knowing that you can truly achieve that goal you have for yourself. And I mean the emotional goal, the goal of happiness, the goal of peace, the goal of wanting to be able to feel calm. It is truly achievable, but it first touches you believing that it's possible for you.
Yeah, and I think for me, it would be where you focus your attention and your energy, where you focus your mind is where your attention and your energy will go. So being aware of what you're paying attention to, what your goals are, and where you're putting your energy so that you are going in the direction that you actually want to go and giving
Yeah.
yourself grace along the way.
Yes. Yes, thank you, ladies. This it's like every time I do one of these conversations, it's just there's so much wisdom coming from everybody. I love seeing, like what everybody's paths have been, what their journeys have been to get to where they are now, and then being able to share that wisdom with everybody. So thank you both for being here and sharing your time, your wisdom, and your energy today. It seemed like everybody that I've pulled in, we've had such a good energy together, and I've absolutely loved this conversation. So, and for everybody who's here watching us, thank you for being here, whether you're watching live or if you're able to come back and catch the replay. If there's something from today's discussion that truly resonated with you, then we'd absolutely love to hear about it. So you can leave a comment below or, share your biggest takeaways or share the video with somebody who you think also needs this message. Okay, and then if this discussion piqued your interest in any way and you want to hear more or learn from some other amazing people as well, then you can check out the YouTube channel Balance Success with Tameeka Leon. And if you subscribe, then you'll be able to see when the upcoming conversations are. But again, all of them are just as wonderful as this one because everybody that I've brought in has been amazing. So until next time, keep showing up for yourself with grace, balance, and courage. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.